Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're really grateful that you can join us for another week. And today we have Reverend Gail Hicks on with us. She's a remarkable soul who discovered her profound spirituality at a tender age. Her journey into the world of spiritual was marked by loving support and unwavering connection to the unseen realms. In this From a young age, Gail was graced with an extraordinary gift. Her spirituality flourished as she shared a special connection with her grandmother and spirit guides. Even as a child of 5, Gail's dreams became a canvas for communication with the spiritual realm. Her imaginary friends weren't mere fantasies, they were her loyal spirit guides, guiding her with love and wisdom. Remarkably, Gail's dreams would often manifest into reality, setting the foundation for her innate clairvoyance and connection to the other side. Uh, she radiates healing energy, and her voice that uplifts soul has become a guiding light for people across the United States and Great Britain. Her journey wasn't just about discovering her abilities, it was about embracing a life dedicated to serving others or their spiritual quests. Her experiences, wisdom, and unwavering connection to the spiritual realm makes her a trusted consultant, a beacon of love, and a source of profound guidance. So, welcome, Gail. We're excited to have you on with us today.
Well, welcome. Gee, I don't think I can top that. Maybe. No. Yeah.
No. That's
Yeah,
right.
when they ask you to do all these bios, you just never know. But my gift started when I was born, and my grandmother passed while holding me and said that me and my sister were the ones she waited for. And I have a lot of my grandmother's gifts. But I was seeing spirit and everything at the age of 5. My grandmother would tuck us in, and I didn't know she was on the other side. I couldn't discern the difference between the living and the deceased as a child. And I had those imaginary friends, and we had a lot of animals, and I always wanted to be a veterinarian, and I would hold them and heal them. And I was healing at 8. And it just happened. But I think what's important, a lot of people always ask, well, how did you start? I just was. I didn't start it. I didn't go take a class to learn. It was just innate. It's born in you. Some people are just born like this,
Yeah.
But I was lucky. I had parents that allowed their kids to have that imagination and to be that, and my mother loved astrology and was fascinated about it, but that wasn't my forte. Mine was healing and spirit communication and seeing auras and stuff like that. And then it just kept developing.
Nice. Wow.
Because at the age of 17, I started doing trance channeling. And I was doing readings at 17. And but I only did that because my sister I was her guinea pig because she wanted to get a hypnotherapy license. And that's how, after leading me into trance, that allows spirit to come even closer. So it's amazing how you develop and stuff with mediumship. It just kind of, you're just visiting with spirit. You sit with them and then you get more information.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So did you do any kind of schooling with this, or is this just all been, the gifts that you've been given along your path?
Well, my sister and I were doing a lot together and meditating and stuff like that. But it wasn't until 1987 that she found Camp Chesterfield in Indiana. And it's the second oldest spiritual center in the United States. The first is Lilydale, and Camp's been there since 1886. It's kind of the home of the Bang sisters. And Camp was the only camp, the Camp Chesterfield was the last camp really doing every phase of phenomena that's in the Bible. So they were doing mental mediumship and physical mediumship, which a lot of people still don't know what trumpet mediumship is, or materialization, or spirit card writing, or flame messengers, or blindfold billets, unless you went to the camp or you went to a spiritualist church where the medium had that gift and could publicly demonstrate it. It's not like standing up like people do today and just off the cuff give these, messages from loved ones, which they're validated, but not to the validation that you had to receive at camp to get your papers. So I went in 87. I didn't go back full time till 92. I think that's when I was called back to go. I heard the calling. I heard the calling. My guides were saying, you need to go. And in 92, the way I went back to camp was I was going through a terrible time with my marriage at the time. And I was in the grotto at 1 o'clock in the morning on my knees, looking at Jesus, asking, what should I do? And it was my first full materialization as he walked off the statue and touched my head and said, I want you to get your papers and get ordained here because I want you to go do my work. And no matter what you do, you'll always be taken care of. You'll always have a place to live and you'll always be fed. Please go get your papers.
Wow.
Well, I don't think you tell him no. So, yeah. So, I made straight A's. I made 100 on every written exam. And at camp, you not only how many sermons you had to have in and stuff, but you had to have affidavits of how many church services you did and how many you had to have so many stand-up clairvoyant messages at so many churches to even go for your papers. And when you stood up and gave messages, if you weren't giving first and last name, especially at Camp Chesterfield, you didn't get your papers. And you couldn't cheat because the last two back rows at the chapel are all the teachers. And you're up there nervous. You've got all these loved ones coming to you. You got your guides here and they're telling you this is who's in line. But they're on the back row and they know what guide you're working with. They know which loved one and which pew you're going to before you give the message. That was in the 90s. I mean, it wasn't like, I feel this person. Can you agree with me? Oh, no. I have John and he comes with his mother and her name is Carrie or Caitlin. Yes. And you have a wild buffalo here and they go, yes, it's my mother. And that's all they could say. And then you gave the message. And then, it's not like how people are doing. Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. We just stopped for a minute because we were just talking about how Gail there's some glitchiness with her visual. And so we discussed it and we just decided it's spirit. So we're just going to go for it. So go ahead, Gail. Continue on.
That's fine. So, hey, for everybody listening to us today here, if my face transfigures or I vanish and come back, it's, spirit loves technology. And I always tell people that sometimes you don't get your recording because, spirit does those things. So, but it just shows that we're very entertaining. That's okay. And we've been touched by spirit. So that's all that matters. But as for my education, I studied at camp. I was ordained in 1997. And I've been doing my work as a medium and a minister. I was doing my work before I became a minister. I've been full-time since 1989 as a psychic medium and a healer. So, and some of my favorite stories were my very first business card was made out of, this was so back in the 80s and 90s, recycled paper when it came out on business cards. And it just said psychic readings. And a lady in Atlanta found my business card like on the street. I love how spirit apports my business card out to people. And she called me up and she said, I'd like to get a healing with you. And I said, I do readings. And she says, no, I'd like to get a healing with you because I know you can heal me from stage 4 breast cancer.
Wow.
And I said, well, okay, you can come to my house. And, I told her that I wasn't certified yet, that I was going for my papers at the time. She said, that's okay. She was a black hat Reiki master. She'd been going to her Reiki circles. She did everything. And she was coming up for a biopsy and she didn't want to have breast surgery. So she came, on the table. I worked an hour on her. And I just love it because, you're not allowed to touch them where the area is. And so I told her exactly where the tumor was. And I said, well, I'm going to send energy there. But I said, I normally touch people. She said, honey, everybody's touched these, so I don't care. Please. And The thing about healing, and this is for those who are practitioners and stuff, is when you're close to your client and your client has given you permission, you got to realize some people think that my cancer is here, and for them to heal, you need to touch them there, because in their mind that's how they're going to let go. Because some people think, oh, you can send it here, but I love to lay on hands, and I go into trance when I give healing, and I have 14 guides, different types of healers that come around the table, so you feel 14 people healing you at the same time. I'm in trance with Burning Eagle, who he's an Arapaho Indian, but a Native American, but he does all my incurables and cancer patients and terminally ill. And you don't have to be terminally ill to get a healing. But when she came, it was stage 4, and she was supposed to have a biopsy. And she came the day before the biopsy. She went the next day. She calls me and she says, I want to take you to dinner. We go to dinner, and she said, I have a benign tumor now. And she said it had metastasized. What was but down to the size of like a dime or something.
Wow.
And they can't explain it. Well, then she started sending me all her friends that had cancer, some form of cancer. And I hadn't even finished getting my papers, but I had started healing when I was 8. So, but I wanted my credentials. I went to college. I feel that credentials are important. They validate things. They show that you're serious about your work, and you can't know everything. No. Y'all agree with me on that? We're always learning. And mediumship is so multifaceted. And, back in the day, in the 70s, when my sister and I would go, there was no place to go meditate. There was only small groups in Atlanta, and it was just unheard of down in the South, And for example, doing readings, if you came for a tarot reading with me, I didn't need tarot cards. The reason I used tarot cards is because I didn't want to be put in jail. I didn't want to be arrested or be put in the insane asylum, because I was talking to a deceased loved one in the 70s and 80s. So the way you read here down in the South was you let people pick tarot cards, and you said, well, this means this, this, and this. And even though I'm talking the whole time to Dr. Bigelow or her father, I could only validate what you needed to know. And then I said, oh, forget this. I just crossed the line. I said to one friend who's here in Atlanta, my friend CJ, love her dearly. She found, this is how spirit works again. She's down in Midtown at one of my brochures. Now, back in the day, everybody's all into internet and social media. We used to use a business card and a brochure. Okay. I'm in the dinosaur age. But she's walking along. She sees a brochure blow by, and she's thinking, oh, someone littered. She picks it up, and it says Reverend Gail Hicks. She thought I was a massage therapist. So she called to make a massage with me, didn't even read the thing. And I said, well, I can do you a reading. And she goes, well, that would be great. I thought you were a massage therapist. She came for a reading, but before she got to my apartment, her father had been sitting on my sofa for 2 hours. And he says, I want to talk to my daughter. I had no earthly idea. I said, okay, I didn't. So she sat down, and I turned on my cassette tape, because I recorded with cassette tape back then. I turned on the cassette tape, and I said, we don't need any cards. Just give me your hands. And I said, your dad's been here for 2 hours. And I just totally said the prayer, and I left, and her dad took over and talked to her for an hour. And she really booked a massage. Okay, so, but the deal is, I didn't I let her talk to her dad, and it meant the world to her.
Nice.
And then she started sending me clients. But all the clients she sent to me, I did not do that type of reading for them. I just felt that comfortable, and the dad, to serve. And it wasn't, and I didn't charge her any more. I charged her the same rate as back in the day I was charging for a tarot reading. I didn't charge her any, because I was building my business off of referrals. That's how you did it then. There was no social media. There wasn't a Google landing page. There wasn't Yelp. There wasn't anything. This is just word of mouth. People, and if you're very, very good at mediumship, you don't need to advertise.
That is true.
You really don't. People just find you.
Yeah.
So those are some of my stories, but go ahead, ask me some questions because I can just go down the rabbit hole.
Most of mine is referral too. My readings and that are mostly referral. Somebody I've done and they've told somebody else, and it's really nice that way too. It's almost like a big family. Everybody knows
Yes, it is. It is.
you know.
It's great when people find you other ways now since we're in 2025. And but it's how you can be of service to the person. And, what part of your mediumship really touched their soul,
Yeah. So do you find that with mediumship, do you often have the loved ones pass that come to you before the person shows up for their reading then?
Sometimes they do, because they're very strong-willed. Last week, I'll tell you, this girl booked an appointment on my website, and I was busy moving and packing and doing stuff. And I looked at a glance and I was like, oh, okay, it's a tarot reading. It wasn't a tarot reading, it was a mediumship reading. Still meditated on her. So for the listeners out there, when you book a session, I meditate for a half hour, first and last name, prior to even doing your session. I don't wing a private session. If I'm doing a stand-up and I'm just, hey, Gail's going to give some messages, I just call my people and I wing it. But what I mean by wing it is I get out of the way, spirit talk. Dr. Bigelow, my doctor teacher, was 92% accurate. He just says the truth. That's it. But when I meditate on you, that's for me to be in your vibration and for them to line up your loved ones if they're there, or they tell me all your questions that you wrote down on a sheet of paper before we even get on our session. And I already know your questions, but I don't really know them. Dr. Bigelow does. So then sometimes I can flip your cards out and I don't even need him because he'll just go, you want to know, da, 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 da. And he answers everything. And I always tell them, remember to breathe, because they get in shock. A lot of people they do shallow breathing. Come on, y'all know what I'm talking about. They go, and I always say, please make sure you have a Kleenex, or a roll of Bounty paper towels or something, because you're going to cry. And I end up crying because spirit gets so close, they adhere to my throat, and then my voice starts to change, and I have to tell them to be over here. But you allow spirit to speak to them. And I had this girl book an appointment, and I got her on Zoom, and I said, your grandfather's here, but he brought somebody. And he's bringing lilies but Lily's in the living. And your grandfather passed when you're 11. And she goes, yes, yes. And she's crying. I said, who's this Jack person? Well, it was her ex-boyfriend. But the thing is, he just passed less than 48 hours ago.
Whoa.
That's how fast she booked a session. I was so thrilled that I meditated and that my guides could get her grandfather to go get a message from him or find him to give her the peace of mind. But for listeners out there, it's not like you just can't, spirit cannot always find your loved one. You've got to realize if it was a traumatic passing, if it was an accident or a murder, or their body wasn't found, or if it was an easy passing, if they don't know they can come talk to you, it might be a week or two. I remember when I lost my boyfriend in the 80s, that's when I first went to camp. I want to know why he didn't come in to talk to me. I had to wait 12 years to get a message from him because he had taken his life. So there's these things in the universe that people don't understand. Like, there are these spiritual laws, and sometimes when they don't know they can come talk to you, they'll give you a message through a guide or Or you're driving down the road, and how in the world did your dad's song come up on your radio station out of the blue? It's because your dad's thinking of you. Those things. That's everybody's like, well, how does it happen? It's not how or why. It just is, you know. That's the one thing that's so exciting about everybody has these lives, you know how they have to have everything planned. Well, when you work for spirit and you're gifted, there are no plans, you know. It's called I'm living with the unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
And I work for the unknown. Yeah.
I remember when I got
What was that?
married. When I got married this last time to my second husband here, and we were going out to the farm to get married, and as we were driving out, I was driving out with my stepdaughters and granddaughter, and all of a sudden the my uncle's song comes on. And so I'm like, oh, that's nice. Thanks, Uncle Barry. I'm really glad that you could be with me today. Well, the girls started crying, and I'm like, but that's how he tells me that he's around, right? And I know you've talked about
Yeah.
too, he comes to you in the same way, right?
Yeah.
With the same
Yeah.
song. So I find it always really interesting when we're open to receiving these messages, how they just, you know, spirit just comes in and says, oh, here I am. I'm gonna
Yeah. One more
Yeah.
time. I'm gonna visit.
Well, yes, because there, you know, the veil is very thin. And when people always, my number one question people ask, and I know y'all have been asked these questions, clients will ask you, well, how come I can't hear them? How come I can't see them? Well, why do I have to go to a medium to do it? And I said, no, you don't have to go to a medium to get a message from them. You're still grieving. Your energy's too low. They're way up here. Like in my classes that I taught when I lived in Massachusetts for 20 years, you know, you have to, the reason you meditate is to raise that vibration to the upper room. Jesus talks about the upper room right here, and then all the doors open, all the doors to spirit all up in here. You don't want to open them all. You just want to open the one where your loved one's coming. But if you can't raise your a vibration to here, and you're grieving and you're down here, you're not going to hear them. You're not going to see them. You might dream of them. You might, you know, but you have to open that energy because they have to lower themselves. Your loved ones have to come from a long way too. And sometimes when they've just made their passing or whatever, the reason they choose to come with your Aunt Susie is because Susie's been over there long. It's just like, I'm going to bring you along. And they need someone to help guide them. And that's why, I don't know. I'll remember, I know you will. You remember that commercial Body on Tap about the shampoo with the beer in it? And I told two friends and so on and so on and so on. Do you remember that commercial?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of how it is over here, again, spirit world. So I tell Dr. Bigelow or Little Sparrow, my joy guide, hey, you know, Kim's gonna be here today and we need to go find her loved ones. Quick, go. And I mean this in the highest respect. Go dig them up, go find them, do whatever you have to do, go find them. Then I send them out like a posse, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and all of a sudden they've got some people, and then they come back, and then I'll have a line of people at the door.
Yeah.
That's how I work. So but a lot of people don't understand. Yeah.
Right. I didn't mean to interrupt you. So do you think then when
no, go ahead.
We go for a mediumship reading with somebody, that different loved ones come at different points in our lives to come back and connect with us for messages that we need to hear at different times?
Good question.
Yes, that's a really good question. Yes, they can. It's not, it would be great if it was a family reunion. Excuse me. Okay, who are you? Who are you? You know, and you'd have like 60 of them. They're all here. And you start naming them all. The person would probably pass out on the other side of the room. Oh my God, you know. But certain loved ones and spirit guides will approach you or come to you or give you a message at a certain time in your life, especially if something's going on with you and you need a lot of protection, then your Native American's going to be like all over you, like a bouncer, you know, like white on rice, like right there. And Then if you're having a day and you're dealing with a male energy, then your dad shows up to give you support, or your granddad, or your ex-husband, or whoever, so that kind of stuff, they're drawn to you for certain reasons to help you. I think the most, when I've done a session, I've probably given 6 to 9 people and guides for one person in a message.
Oh,
But that was a rarity, and that was like an hour session. But I gave them bits and pieces and who had touched in. And then what gets me is, like, after you're done and you've closed the door, listeners need to understand, when a medium closes the door, they're not tired, but we're done. We're ready to come back. I'm ready to be Gail again and not Reverend Gail. I'm not. And then when I hear spirit, I'm always flipping my hair. I hear with my right ear. So I tilt my head like someone's pouring something down it. Everybody has their mannerisms. And I always tell people, please don't take it personal if I don't look at you, because I'm looking here. Half the time I read with my eyes closed, because clairvoyantly I got the chalkboard going. I've got a bunch of stuff going. So they're showing me, they're just throwing stuff at me. So I just tell you what I get. And I only tell you the truth. That's the most important thing. I'm not like these other people. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, because I can't manifest what you want to hear. And I always tell people, my clients and stuff, God, I don't care what denomination you are, what you practice, but God, what I learned at camp, is good, orderly direction. And ego is ease God out. So you've got to manifest your life with the spiritual laws and understand natural law. And if you want to know, well, how come I can't hear my dad? Well, did you invite your dad to come be with you, or you are demanding him to be there? Loved ones come if you put a candle by his picture and buy him some flowers, or if you eat a Snickers bar, because at 3 o'clock every day your dad ate a Snickers bar, baby, he'll show up because you're eating a Snickers bar. So, it's about an invitation. she's thinking it's hysterical, but it's true. You have to invite them. You can't just summon them.
Okay.
I've had people go, well, why did my dad show up? And I said, well, Dr. Bigelow says it's 1 o'clock. It's tea time. He's on the green. He's teeing off with his buddies. And she started crying. My dad played golf every Thursday at 1 o'clock. He teed off. Well, why do you think he'd be here today? Plus we have free will. And when we pass to spirit, we still have free will. So that's how I try to educate them and answer. But what's interesting is sometimes the loved one they expect to have, they get the most endearing message from someone they did not want to connect with.
yeah, sometimes.
Yes,
Sometimes.
that's very true.
And where they come in and they apologize and they say, so-and-so is doing okay, but I wanted to take this moment. I got in the front of the line and I needed to, because the door to reformation is never closed against any human soul here or in the hereafter. And, that's to help them heal. And sometimes they take offense. And then they'll say, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And I said, I never said that I was going to bring these people to you. I said, whoever comes is for your best and highest good.
It's true. It's true.
So there you have it.
No, I love that, because I think it's important for people to know that and to understand that when you're working with your loved ones that have passed and things. And I know my stepdaughter said to me one time, we were sitting there and she said, oh, I wish my friend would come through. I said, well, she's here, so here's what she is saying to you. And she says, well, how come she comes to you and not me? I'm like, well, because I'm open to it, and you're not listening, right? If you listen, like you said, and give that invitation, she probably will. And she probably has, but you're missing it because you're looking for something so specific. That's not how they work.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I think that one thing I always tell my clients and on my podcast, the listeners, I tell them, I said, you've got to unlearn what you've learned. That, and I know that line came from Star Trek, you know, when Spock says you have to unlearn what you've learned. But the thing is, if you have to be very receptive and you can't be judgmental of how it comes to you. You don't judge it. You say thank you. You be grateful. But so many people have it's kind of, Dr. Bigelow said, yes, sir. Dr. Bigelow's talking now. He says, tell them that it's like so many people are so used to driving up to the window and ordering their coffee the way they want it, and they go to the window and it better be that way. Cannot do that in the world of spirit. So sorry.
No, thank you,
You
Doctor.
know,
Oh, that's a good.
spirit's good. It's almost like, how come my mother didn't come talk to me? Well, I'm sorry, but you know, you had Master Saint Germain come, and you had your Uncle Bob come, and you had Jesus and the Mother Mary show up. Who else do you want? You know, and they answered all your questions. You know, like these profound people. You know, but you know, so you can't please everybody, but I will tell you one thing that I love about clients. Your most skeptical person that comes to you for a session is your best advocate afterwards. Because somehow I've read for people who don't believe in what I do, and y'all know what I'm talking about. Since the 80s and 70s, I've been called everything in the book. And I'm a minister. So I've been called everything, and you do this and you do that, and you know, you put a hex on me, and no, I don't do that. I believe in natural law. Whatever you think, say, or do is your tomorrow. So I'm not going to think that. I'm praying for you. I'm not doing the whatever, the opposite. And I don't do natural law in reverse. And I'm just trying to do the best and highest for you, because that's what I'm here for. But you get someone who's skeptical, that sits down and doesn't believe in mediumship, doesn't believe in tarot cards or whatever, and they sit down, they pick some cards. This was at a party I did a couple months ago. They were a high corporate business person, and I'm reading their cards, and I said, you've got these decisions to make. You need to block and sell this. You need to do this. And I'm telling him what he needs to sell and everything. And then I said, you're named after your father. You have your father's name, and you have his company, and your dad says to tell you, da, 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 da. And he bust out crying, put his head on the table. He was just, and then he goes, how did you do that? I said, you have the same name vibration as your dad. But your cards, your dad's been here all night waiting for you to show up at this party I'm working at. And you should be happy. And your dad's birthday's tomorrow. What do you not get? He's like, how do you know that? I said, look, I give what I get. I didn't Google you. I didn't even know you were coming. I didn't know who was going to be. I'm here for the host that had me. You know, spirit is divine. So just accept it. Yeah. You know, took all my business cards. Can't wait for you to hurry up, move to Atlanta. When are you getting here? So, but some people that are the most skeptical are your best advocates. And then, but the thing is, you've touched them, you've shared spirit with them, you gave them confirmation, and you validated something that they didn't even really ask for. Yeah, it's like, you know how, remember Bewitched? I love the show Bewitched. This is what I would tell my students. When you want to call your God, you know how Samantha would go, Dr. Bombay, come right away. So that's how I do Dr. Bigelow. Dr. Bigelow, where are you? Dr. B. I call him Dr. B. And he shows up, you know, hey, where there's people, I need some help. You know, I can't do this alone. I'm sitting here alone at this party. Please bring the, you know, yeah. I can't. You know, I don't want to be just a psychic. I'm doing spirit communication. I want the best and highest. I want Dr. Bigelow to be there to help me, tell him this, this, and this, and this. And I just repeat what he says.
No bet.
Yeah.
So, you know,
absolutely.
You know, when you can do that, and that's your gift, never deny your gift. And
No.
don't try to be somebody else. For heaven's sakes, when spirit gives you a gift, whether I started out with everything I ever dreamt, even to this day comes true. But now when it dreams, I dream in full color, cinescope. I got the full cinescope, not an IMAX theater. I got the cinescope. And then I'll hear my dad come in and say something, or my mom now, because they've been gone for 10 years. But when it used to be just my guides and teachers or other loved ones. But, whatever they showed me, it came true, like my move. I got a dream in October. My dad said, "You're going to be living here." This is, I'm moving into where they just used to live on my brother's farm. And my dad goes, he talked like this. My dad goes, "You're going to be living here." And that's where he passed away. I was there. I took care of him. My brother and I were there. I did all the hospice care for him at the end. And then my mom said, "Yes, you're going to live here." I'm like, that was in October. I moved in February.
Wow.
That's
Spirit will, when you're ready to move or shift, they don't mess around. They just go, back it up. She's moving, so but I love working
the
for
messages
spirit.
if you let them.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Spirit.
They
definitely.
Yeah.
So
I've moved so much. I left Atlanta in 2000 and to get my teeth, not my teeth cleaned. Well, actually, I met him at Camp Chesterfield. I met a dentist. He lived in Boston at the time. And I ended up going up to see him to have dental work done as a trade, which most people would have paid $25,000 to have the dental work I had done because I was dying of mercury poisoning in my mouth from the amalgam of fillings. So I did a trade, a healing and meditation with him. He did all my teeth and I served the onset church. Then people started praying for me to move there. And I left Atlanta within the year and moved to Massachusetts in my car with $4,500 to my name and no place to live.
Oh.
I just went. And my dad didn't want me to go because there were nor'easters up there and I'd never seen snow like that. And I didn't care. I went. And I stayed for 20 years.
Wow.
But spirit, not only everything Jesus said, I had a place to stay. I stayed at the church with my friend Sharon. I served. And what moved me there was healing. No one knew I did readings. Was doing healings.
Wow.
I was doing 4 and 5 2-hour healings a day. That's how much healing I served all the spiritualist churches there, built a clientele until someone asked me, could I predict the Super Bowl in 2004 for the Patriots? And I just moved there. And that's like, as a medium, well, New Englanders are diehard Pats and Red Sox. And if you were wrong, you might as well move out of town or leave the country because you wouldn't have a business there. And I was just building my business.
Right.
And so when I meditated with Dr. Bigelow with my legal pad for a whole week, I wrote down everything I saw, but I had remote viewing of the whole Super Bowl. And I gave verbatim what he said in the interview. And then next thing you know, I was on the local news and I was doing predictions for reversing the curse for the Red Sox. But I was like, this is not part of my mediumship. But yes, it was, because what it did was the average guy in New England would not go, and the majority of them are Catholic, would not go to a psychic for help. And I lived in Fall River, which was a Portuguese town, which, crosses.
Yeah. So,
and I had men that believed in the Patriots and they were Red Sox. They would come. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, our time is kind of coming to an end. So I just want to make sure that we can get in where everybody can find you at.
Okay. Okay. Well, for those who want to find me, my website is revgailhicks.com, which is easier, which is just gailhicks.com. And I have a podcast called Mediums with a Message. And I'm getting ready to do a YouTube mediums with a message. I just haven't had the time because, like y'all, we do it all by ourselves. So that's, around. But I do readings and, you just call me up and book a session. So I'm around.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And if you had
Yeah.
a final thought to leave with all of our followers, what would that be?
Be receptive and always ask for the best and highest good for yourself and everybody and for that day. Each day, do this because you will improve your vibrational rate. You'll be grounded. You'll always be protected. And the bounty will be unlimited.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Well,
beautiful message.
yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, we appreciate you being with us, and we appreciate Dr. Bigelow coming in and giving us that message as well. So
That was
thank
lovely.
Yes.
you so much, and hopefully you'll come back and share space with us again in the future. And
And good luck on your
I would
road.
love to that. Yes, I would love to. And I'd like to have y'all on my podcast when y'all have time, but y'all are so busy. You're going to be on that European whirlwind tour pretty soon.
well,
And then who knows? And then you're doing a cruise and y'all would be very busy. So,
That'd be
yes,
very nice.
well,
Thank you.
thank you.
but
We
I
appreciate
appreciate it.
that.
Yes.
Yes, and everybody else, we will see you the next time.
You bet you will.